the hosts for supporting AIS and for the session. Unfortunately, I'm unable to join you in person, but I've asked the colleagues on the Bylaws Review Committee if they could assist presenting the current status of the inputs received and giving the opportunity to have further engagement both now as well as informally thereafter to get feedback from the community, to give us guidance, because we're not here to impose our will, but rather to gather your feedback to see what's reasonable, appropriate, where we have rough consensus, or trying to find a middle ground where there is no consensus, with a view to providing guidance as a way to improve governance going forward. So let me hand over. Let me also just acknowledge the significant support that we've received from Kishna, Ashok, Ghislaine, and the Afrinic team in assisting this work. Obviously, their assistance is greatly appreciated, as well as, again, just acknowledging the very significant inputs we've received from the community. People have put in a lot of thought, and they've given us excellent contributions that we're busy reviewing and deliberating on. So let me hand over to my colleagues in the room who'll proceed with the presentation.
Thanks, Mike. My name is Andrew Alston. I'm a member of the committee. We're going to run through some slides very quickly. The idea is to run through these slides fairly quickly to give you time to speak, because this session is about hearing from you more than anything else. And so, like I said, we'll try and be brief with the slides. The purpose of today's session, the committee will provide an overview of the consultation process, explain how the submissions were analyzed, present some of the key themes emerging from the consultation, highlight areas of consensus and divergence, and try and outline the next steps. It's important to note, no final recommendations have been made as of yet. The committee members, Mike, the chair, who you've just heard from, Khaled, Sean, myself, Landry, and Simon, and with great support from the Afrinic Secretariat. Many, many thanks for all the support we've had from the Secretariat, because this would be monumentally difficult without their support. The community consultation process ran through a timeline, call for comments. We had a webinar as well. There was a consultation period, then an extension period. We've gone into an analysis phase, and the next step will be the drafting phase, and then there will be a final report. So we received 45 submissions. And they were received from resource members, government agencies, regulators, ISPs, civil society, technical community, former Afrinic officials, and Afrinic staff, and also included 16 detailed supporting papers. So there was a lot of input for the community to go over. We decided to adopt a thematic analysis approach, and we grouped the submissions into themes which were assessed against legal compliance, governance effectiveness, operational resilience, community legitimacy, practical implementation, and alignment with global RIR practices. I'm not going to read this whole list, but as you can see, we've got 18 thematic elements here. This slide deck, we'll get into a couple of these, and then we will talk about the rest potentially in a supplementary session, dependent on how time goes. But yeah, as you can see there on the slide deck, it is quite a long list of major themes. Areas of strong consensus. The community submissions support election integrity, they support transparency, support accountability, support governance continuity, they want conflict of interest safeguards, and they want institutional resilience built into the bylaws. The membership structure, so as I said, we're going to go through a couple of themes that we thought were really relevant to get feedback on. Starting with theme 3, the membership structure, there were some potential legal questions identified, and there were 3 approaches that were proposed. 1 is to clarify the current framework. 2, a community resolution mechanism, and the option 3 was a structural reform of the membership model. So that was what came from the submissions. Then we got to themes 4 and 5, which is resource management, and the debate here centered on transfers versus leasing, out-of-region use, and it raised some interesting questions. Should AFRINIC play a limited registry role? Should AFRINIC actively enforce regional use requirements? Those were 2 questions that came up. Then we had submissions on board structure, and there were several alternative models proposed here. The current model with 6 regional, 2 independent/competency-based directors and the CEO. And then we had alternatives with a 6+3 with the CEO as an observer, or a 6+3 with the CEO as an active voting director. And then there were also some constituency-based models that were proposed. Theme 8, regional representation. There were a lot of questions around this. If seats are regional, should voting also be regional? And there were a couple of options proposed: regional electorates versus continent-wide voting, and hybrid approaches of those 2 that were given to us. On election integrity, this was one of the strongest areas of agreement, and some of the common proposals here are an independent NOMCOM, an independent election committee, transparent criteria, proper procedures for election challenges, and rules around campaigning. So I think there was a lot of agreement on the way forward on this. Theme 10, director term limits, very broad support for director term limits, with a couple of different models proposed. Model A, 2 years, 2 terms plus a cooling off period. Option C, which was 3 terms. C was director term limits as a matter of principle only. And 4, term limits that are linked to a broader governance reform. On theme 11, on the Council of Elders, 4 different approaches emerged here. 1, retain; 2, reform; 3, replace; and 4, scrap it all together. And the committee, in evaluating this, is looking at purpose, necessity, independence, and practical value. And from there, we will come up with probably 2 options, but it remains to be seen. As I said, there are no final recommendations as of yet. Theme 13, the dispute resolution. We've had suggestions to include mandatory mediation, internal remedies, arbitration, and governance dispute procedures. And the goal of this is to reduce institutional disruption from litigation. So if we can find a model of dispute resolution that reduces the amount of litigation, that there seems to be broad support for. Theme 14, on government participation, there were different views here. Some support a government advisory committee style mechanism, and Others favor maintaining AFRINIC as a primarily technical coordination body. On theme 15, transparency and accountability, there was some very strong support here for conflict disclosures, publication of board decisions, election transparency, accountability mechanisms, and governance reporting. So those were strong things that came across strongly that were supported. So what happens next? We've completed the consultation and we've got our interim observations. We're now moving into a phase of drafting reform opinions, and the next phase after that will be a community review, and then finally there will be a final report with proposed resolutions that will be put forward at the special general members meeting later this year, I believe. We are now going to open the floor to questions, dependent on how long the questions go on for and how much discussion, and I'm hoping that there's a lot because we really need the feedback. We will move from this room into the Samburu room to continue this session if we run out of time. But this is your time to speak. This is your time to ask questions. The committee needs the feedback, needs to hear your voice, because AFRINIC, as a bottom-up entity, needs to be, the bylaws need to reflect what the community wants. So, yeah, the floor is open.
Can we check the mic, please? The mic on the floor seems not to be on.
Hello, hello. Okay, it's okay. It's fine. Thank you. So, Hervé Clément from Orange. So, thank you very much. I am very impressed by your work and the ideas on the result you gave so far. We made internally the exercise to reread these bylaws. And to be honest, as the first reading I had, there were some parts I absolutely did not understand as definition because of the past and our experience in the community, in the governance, and because perhaps of the work of the ICP2 done so within the SOAC as well. Perhaps I have some clue of things who could be better, and I think you gave the spirit of what to do. So the only thing, I will be brief, so I am waiting for the new version you will give, and I hope that when reading it, I will have the ability to see, okay, that how a regional internet registry has to go, has to be governed, and it will be clear enough because there was a lot of part of with lack of clarity. So my only word is thank you.
Thank you very much for that feedback. I think that it is something that the committee is looking at. The bylaws at the moment kind of have to be read conjunctively, which means you've got to read through everything and cross-reference. And I think that one of the things that the committee is going to work towards is to try and make sure that we don't have this conjunctive reading, but that it is more clear on a section-by-section basis, but it is something that has been discussed.
Okay, please go ahead.
Okay, yeah, mic is working. Firstly, I'd just like to say that you guys were quite charitable in your classification of the different submissions you received. There was nothing about from random idiots or the like, so you were quite charitable in your classification. I'm curious about the remark that you made around the role of government and it being sort of two positions on there with an advisory committee type structure and so on. From the submissions received, how much of the discussion on that does sort of exist within a binary, and how much room is there within the scope of discussion to sort of say AfriNIC is a technical body, it is it isn't a governmental entity, but that governments individually and collectively are a stakeholder, just like everybody else is a stakeholder. I'm just sort of wondering. Yeah, where that discussion sort of lands in terms of not being, put in a two-track binary. Thanks.
Thank you. Who wants to take that? Okay, I think I should. Let me take that. We did receive submission from government, as you imagine, because they are stakeholders as well, and so I think without necessarily saying or second-guessing the committee, we are still considering all the options, all the submission. We are still looking at it. We want to make sure that whatever we are proposing, because eventually it's the resource members that we vote on this. We want to make sure that whatever we are proposing continue to maintain the multi-stakeholder nature of the IRR system, continue to maintain the community and equal footing that we have at the moment. But again, we are still in the point of taking feedback, reviewing what we have received. And of course, if Ashok, who is perhaps legal, may have some other things to add to what I've just said, but that is the stage we are in now. Thank you. Ashok, do you want to?
In terms of our process, and that is the intent is not to point fingers and say, Paul's input said X, Y, and Z, and our report will do the same, is we're looking at themes. We're not going to attribute comments or quotes to any particular submission. We don't believe that's very helpful. So the intent is really to just indicate that there are certain themes that are coming through. And I think Paul's question, is it binary? At the moment, it is a little binary. And it's the objective of this committee to try and thread the needle, to try and find a position which is not completely binary. So, but what we're not going to do is tell you who said what and why and what we think of individual submissions, but rather trying to pull together the themes and then propose practical ways forward that can encompass the various submissions that we've received.
Thank you very much, Mike. The floor is still open. I was expecting a long queue, but any other person wants to make comment? Yes, please.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Adeomolulu, Mewan. I didn't quite get the decision of the committee on transfers. I'm not sure I'm very clear on your feedback on what happens to, or how do we prevent this from happening?
Okay, I think, all right, I'm going to just quickly comment on that. And if there's someone else on the committee that wants to add, they can also add. So for transfers, one of the things that we discussed within the committee is that the home of IP resource management, when it comes to what determines how we manage IP resource, is in the policies, and it is the PDP, that is the PDWG, Policy Development Working Group, that are actually in charge of that. And we believe that a lot that has to do with the transfers needs to be empowered and needs to come from the policy side of things. We may actually, we are thinking of how do we make sure that the bylaw further strengthen the PDP to be able to further fulfill its mandate. That's what we're kind of looking into. But again, I see my colleague Andrew is going to make more additions. Thank you.
Yeah, I think something that's really important that we've discussed in the committee is that the bylaws are a governance document, and they may well refer to external documents like the policy manual, etc., etc. But baking operational things into a governance document is probably not the right approach. I would say that is something that we've kind of discussed quite a bit, and it's more a case of empower the PDP, because in the issue of transfers in particular, that is a policy issue. And the community needs to set those policies. I saw there was another hand up from somebody else. Please feel free. Yeah. We're not hearing Annette. Is she unable to?
Hi, Andrew. Can you hear me?
Yes, now we can hear you fine.
And thanks very much, Henriette Esterhuizen here from Johannesburg, South Africa, civil society member of the community. Just a question, thanks for the excellent presentation. Based on your work and on the submissions, was there one or maybe two thematic areas that stood out as being significantly in need of rethinking or reform? Did particular areas emerge, or was it an across-the-board sense of needing to review the bylaws?
So you'll notice in the slide deck presentation, we presented only a subset of the long list of subsets, because those are the ones that we felt needed the most input and attention. So there was definitely aspects of it that were non-controversial or we didn't get a lot of comments on, versus aspects where there was more comments and that required more time and debate amongst the committee. It's not uniform across the bylaws at all.
Mike, you want to say something?
I think, happy to align. I don't think that there is a big one or two key issues. And I think part of what Andrew was suggesting is, I think a lot of the governance approaches are contained in the bylaws, but it's rather refining, simplifying, pulling the threads together so that people understand how they fit together.
All right, let's go back on the floor. Question from the online?
Yes, Mr. Abdul Karim.
Go ahead, please, Abdul Karim.
Thank you very much. My name is Abdul Karim. I'm from University of Ilorin, Nigeria. Thank you for the wonderful session. My question is, what is the timeline for the committee and what is the process going to be like in terms of, would there be public comment after you've done your work, or it will just go for voting by members only? Thank you.
Okay, I think I can answer that. Thank you. When we started this, we published a timeline, And actually, part of our timeline is that we were going to have a first draft, published for community consultation before we then go back to have a second draft. But we kind of were amazed at the significant contributions that we had, and we need to analyze it. We need to, Andrew kind of explained the approach that we took to prepare, to review those submissions. That made us not to be able to have a first draft at this meeting, but we're going to be, after this meeting, we're going to be having a review of our timeline to kind of publish an updated timeline that we capture the fact that we still need to have a first draft and then consultation from the community and eventually, but I should note that ultimately the resolutions are going to be voted on by the members, but we would have that opportunity for community to give their input. That is definitely going to happen in the process. We'll publish the updated timeline very soon. I think it's likely after this AIS. Anyone want to add?
Yeah, just one note, and I think this underscores how important community participation is here. Keep in mind that to change the bylaws require a 75% supermajority vote of the eligible voting member base, all the people voting. And so we need to know from you, are we going wrong? What are we doing right? And we need to hear your thoughts, because at the end of the day, it's your votes that are going to decide whether or not these amendments happen. And I think that's really, really important to note. We as the Bylaw Review Committee are here to analyze community feedback and put it into words, put it into proposals. But at the end of the day, the community is going to have their say, and it is going to be by formal ballot on these amendments. And as I said, it's a high pass mark, 75%. So we really need to make sure that we've captured people's thoughts. I don't know if anybody else wants to add anything. Ashok?
Thank you, Chairman, if I may. You see, it is important to place the context of our discussion today. We have been working the committee here for some time on our own, as it were. So time had come, looking at the substantial number of submissions which were made to us, we thought it, with the chairman and other members, that it was good, maybe important even, for us to tell you, to put you into what we are doing right now at the level of the committee. Of course, as Sean has said it, and Andrew also, this is only work in progress so far. And eventually the final draft would be where we'll come to you again for discussion with the community. But do bear in mind that there has been so much work which had to be done. We, in fact, the timing that we had put in the beginning, we had to change it. There is so much that has come our way that we need time. We can't come to you with something which is so flimsy and simple that doesn't warrant any change or doesn't warrant any reflection. So we thought this meeting today, this discussion was very important to tell you what we started with, where we are, and what we are going to do. Thank you, Chairman.
All right, thank you. Do we have any question or comment from online? Okay, yeah, please go ahead.
Thank you. Good afternoon. My name is Noah Abdelbaki. I'm from Egypt, and I'm an Afrinic fellow. My question basically was also about the timeline. But my question is, when do you expect to publish the final report? And thank you, by the way, thank you for your efforts on reviewing the submissions and the comments. And do you plan to organize any webinars with the community members to address their questions? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. That's a very good question. And thank you. Welcome to Afrinic. We definitely, we have done webinars before. We definitely will do more. before the final report is published. We want to make sure that the community is carried along as much as possible. We want to make sure that they understand the changes that needs to be made, and so that by the time it gets to voting, it's easier. We have done this process in the past whereby when we got to voting, we didn't achieve as much success as we have hoped that we would achieve. So we want this to be more engaging. So I would say that our timeline is going to be based on the timeline of when the board intends to do the SGMN. That's the special general meeting. So we're going to work backwards based on that timeline. So I wouldn't say specific time now because we need to consult with the board to actually know, to actually then have an updated timeline which we'll work with. But in between of that, we're going to plan webinars and we're going to plan sufficient time for the community to kind of comment on the first draft, which will be published at a later time. Thank you.
Yeah, just to add a little bit to what Sean said about the SGMM, by corporate law, when the announcement of the SGMM goes out, it has to be at least 21 days before the SGMM, and it has to include any resolutions to be voted on. So we're kind of working back from when that SGMM, we don't have a date yet as to exactly when that SGMM is, but it is crucial for us to have things discussed and ready and in resolution form with community feedback at least 21 days before the SGMM in order to fulfill our mandate.
All right, I'm not seeing any hand in the, is there any hand in the Zoom? Okay, oh, let's go ahead. Yes, please.
I'm going to take a second round and have the great pastime of seeing if I can make other people have to do more work. I'm just wondering, with there being potentially contentious bylaw amendments or potentially a need to stage it, has the committee ruled out a situation in which at the next, at an SGMM, that would be the next meeting, one set of proposals is brought forward, and that could be interim bylaw amendments, and the committee continues working, or has that been ruled in or ruled out? And I'm just sort of wondering if I can make more work for you guys.
I mean, thanks for that fantastic suggestion. It's something that we'll take as a feedback, which, of course, all feedbacks are welcome, and I think what you just said is something that we can take back and then put in our consideration when we are looking at the timeline that we're going to be reviewing very soon and publishing. Thank you very much. Oh, Mike, yeah, Mike, you have the floor.
Also to respond to Paul's suggestion, and I think it's an excellent one. Obviously, we need to consider the terms of reference under which we operate. The board needs to be convinced. The intent is for this committee not only to come up with a draft set of bylaws, but also to come up with a report. And in that report, the objective will be to also analyze and assess areas for future improvement, items that don't necessarily require urgent attention or which may require additional engagement, consultation, review. So I certainly think that ongoing review is a good thing. Do we need to keep a standing bylaws review committee, or does this fold into the governance committee, is something that we can, of course, debate and discuss with the board. But I think that having ongoing assessment is always a good thing. One should never be comfortable that we have a perfect solution and we can move forward. We're an internet organization. If this is bylaws 3.0, we should already be looking at 3.1 and 3.2 and eventually getting to 4 and so on and so forth.
I think the other important thing is in the report, as Mike alluded to, we'll be referencing things that could be looked at for further improvement. In addition to that, I think there will be potentially areas where we say, we've had feedback from the community, but it was out of scope of the bylaws and the bylaw review committee. However, this does need to be looked at outside of necessarily the bylaws, because there were areas and submissions that we had which look way beyond the mandate of the bylaw review committee, and we'll be talking about that in the report. And then I think seeing what the way forward on those issues is, because we are constrained as to what goes in the bylaws versus some of the suggestions which go beyond that. And I think that will be delved into more deeply in the report. Mike, I don't know if you want to add more to that.
All right, thank you very much. I think we can call this a wrap if there is no other comments. Yeah, okay.
Good evening. Yeah, my name is Abraham. I'm from South Sudan, and I'm Afrinic 37 fellow. I would like to know from the panelists if there is a provision in the current bylaws that where all sub-African countries or regions are represented. This is to ensure regional, all regions are well represented in Africa. So I would like to know if there is that adequate representation of all regions in Africa.
Okay, thank you very much. It's always good to hear from fellows. So the current bylaw make provision for its board members to be sourced from different parts of the region. So it's not necessarily country-based, it's region-based. So we have Western region, we have North and all the regions. Then we also have two non-regional, which we refer to as independent, which Andrew was during Andrew's presentation. So in the sense of representation, when all these members are on the board, they act as a board, even though they are sourced from those regions. But when they are on the board, they act as a single board, acting in the interest of the entire continent, not necessarily in the interest of their region from which they are from. Whether we can really have representation on the board from the 54 countries in Africa may be a little bit ambitious, but what is important is that we are able to ensure that the entire board is actually representing the interest of the entire Afrinic service region. And that is one of the things that's why it is important that this bylaw speak to that. And if there's anything we can change in the bylaw to kind of make that even much more loud enough, we'll be happy to receive those feedbacks. Ashok, do you want to make any legal condition or antidote on this one?
Yeah, thank you, Sean. In fact, as matters stand today, we don't have any legal issue with what come from the reflection of the gentleman who just spoke earlier. But we have got to bear in mind that if you look at the history of Afrinic, the way it has evolved, and the way we have been running elections, we shouldn't lose sight of the fact that this organization is a continental organization. It is there as a representation of African interest. And we have had to devise a mechanism to ensure that there is a governance on a continental sort of plane scope. And the process that we have put in place so far has served the community to a certain extent, and it's up to you to decide whether we have well served the community so far in terms of the bylaws and the governance, and if there is any need to change, this is what we are actually doing. And if ever the community feels that the representation of the African interest in the context of an African continent, African internet community needs to be changed, then it's up to you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ashok. I think at this point we can call it a day. I see the timekeeper is already there, so I'll hand it to her to kind of...
Thank you, Sean. A round of applause for them. Thank you so much. You can have your seats. Thank you. Thank you. You can just leave the mics there. So we quickly move to the last session of the day. And this session is a panel discussion that will be